Hello, it's the 3rd of January 2017. I hope it's not too windy out here. I thought I'd do a little video on pruning. I'm in the back garden and we've got a family tree here. It's an apple tree that's been grafted, so it's got, I think, 4 different varieties on it, and it's never done very well. And in fact, last year it didn't have any apples whatsoever, although I had pruned it. So it needs another go really before we think about getting rid of it. And Chris is the pruning expert, so I'm going to get him to come and talk about how you do it and why. So here's Chris. He's done a lot of pruning courses in his time. And so Chris, why do we prune fruit trees?
Well, there's 2 reasons. When they're younger, we do what's called formative pruning, which is to create the shape. And in fact, with these trees, because we're trying to keep these close to the wall, more or less in a fan shape, formative pruning is something we carry on doing.
Yeah, well, we haven't formatively pruned these enough, probably, because they're sticking out into the garden, but
yeah,
that's okay as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Well, one of the reasons these stick out a bit is it's one of these family trees with 4 different apples all grafted on the same tree.
We didn't want to chop off every variety. We wanted to keep them going.
And then the other form of pruning is pruning for health and development of the tree generally. So with that, you're looking particularly to take out any weak shoots, any shoots that are crossing over. If you get branches rubbing, it's a potential source of disease and damage. So we're looking out.
And presumably they won't get much light anyway.
No.
And they'll get wet.
That's right. And in some cases here they're rubbing on the fence.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing pruning to take things away from the fence, take out the thin weedy stuff, and just generally keep the healthy, strong shoots. We're taking down last year's growth by about 50 or 60% because apart from anything else, we don't want to be getting on a step ladder jumping for the apples.
Which we hope we're going to get.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the overall height within trim as well. We've got one actual dead bit here, and you can tell this, you can do what we call the traffic light test. So the colour gives it away, but if I scratch the bark, I've scratched the bark, underneath the bark it's brown, that means it's dead. A bit further down, it comes up a nice bright green, so that bit's alive. So I'm going to take off the dead bit and a couple of buds down into the live. So I'm cutting above a bud, slanting at an angle so the rainwater runs off and there's no rot. So this is one of the ones I was talking about rubbing on an adjacent branch. I'm going to take this down again to a bud. There's a nice bud just there. And you can see where this was rubbing against the adjacent branch. Next year that would have cut through the bark.
You keep all the branches, or do you sometimes think, oh well, that's too many branches, I'll take some right out there?
Yes, sometimes. This tree at the moment doesn't have an excess of branches, but it does have quite a lot that are going to be taken back because they're either too long or they're crossing over or they're getting close to crossing over. They'll cross over next year. So I'll just go through a bit faster now. This one down here, long, weedy and crossing over 2 other branches, we'll take that. This one here, just take it back half length because it's going to cross over other things next year. This is about to touch and cross over, so I'm going to take that back. These 2, the extension growth has just gone up a bit high, so I'll take those off. This one, again, I'll take the extension growth back by about half. That one I'll take back by about half. And that one, and that one, and that one. This one is just going crazy over in that direction, so I'll take that off to there. Shorten that one back, shorten that one, and 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 that one. That one, and this one at the top. Take down the leader. And I've got 2 over here, 4 actually. and one that's going way over there and sort of reaching up for the sky. So we'll have that one off. We've got the tree back to picking height, because next year obviously it's going to grow another foot to foot and a half anyway. And then I shall move through into the other half in a moment.
So this is a result of a kind of drastic prune a few years ago, because we let it get away, I guess, didn't we?
We did, but it's a nice clean callus that's forming, and in another 2 or 3 years that callus will close over. There's no rot, there's no wet, because we cut it on the right angle. Okay, so this is where we cut it off, and this swelling here is the callus that is naturally forming and will gradually spread over like a large scab. But that is absolutely clean, dry wood. That's really a nice cut.
Yeah, there was something about calluses forming there. It's harder if you just cut straight through like that.
Yes.
If you cut a side shoot, there's something in the bark, isn't there?
There
that
is.
Comes over.
If you see here, where this shoot comes out, there's what's called the collar. It sort of swells a bit just before it joins the trunk, just between there and there. And this is the zone of maximum growth, and it's got all the growth hormones. So if I wanted to cut this off, I would cut it just there, just outside the collar, rather than tight up to the trunk, because if I cut it just there beyond the swell of the collar, all the hormones are at maximum effect, and it will really close over quickly, very, very cleanly. So you always want to leave the collar when you're taking a side shoot off.
Yeah.
There was this bramble coming over from next door's garden. So one day last summer I kind of leant right over the fence and cut it as low down as possible. And now, down at ground level in our garden, it's actually rooted in. A great, big, fat, healthy root. So you want to stop brambles touching the ground, because the moment they do, they make a new bramble plant. Nature is very tenacious. Everything wants to survive.
So that second tree where Chris is pulling out the brambles is a pear tree. It's another family tree. And in fact that one has produced pears regularly every year. So it's more productive than the apple. I don't know what the problem is with this apple. We're giving it some manure to encourage it. I did wonder about the apple tree if we'd planted it too close to the wall, because it is very close. And it may be that the wall is leaching away all the water. We did have a very dry summer, but it didn't even have many blossoms in the spring last year, so there wasn't anything to produce the apples from. So that's pruning, basically. We're doing it in the winter time because Chris says that if you do it when the trees are asleep, there's a reason.
Right. Well, you can prune in the summer and in the winter. If you prune in the summer, it's better for limiting the growth in the following year, because the tree goes dormant and it kind of calculates how many branches it's got, and it adjusts the root system accordingly. So if you prune in the summer and you reduce the amount of branches a bit, then the root system becomes a bit less vigorous the following year. This is what the textbooks say. If you...
So you prune in the winter and it has a different
It has a different effect. It's easier to prune in the winter because you haven't got foliage to worry about.
That's true.
You see things a lot more clearly. But the tree now thinks it ought to have more branches than it has when it starts growing in the spring, because it went to sleep in the autumn with a lot of branches. Now it's got
and it
fewer
wakes
branches.
up and they're gone, so it starts
And it starts growing large quantities of thin vegetative shoots that
So
probably...
maybe we shouldn't be pruning this in the winter. If
Well,
we don't want it to spread all over the place, do we?
Thing is, we've only taken a very small percentage of the tree off. It's if you're
Yeah.
doing major pruning.
So if we want to hack a branch off, we do
if you
that
want
in
to
the
hack
summer.
a major branch off, that's much better done.
But not
during
in the spring, because the sap's rising and you get bleeding everywhere.
No, so that's the kind of July onwards job.
And it's only the apples and pears, it's not the plums, because they have some disease problem, don't they,
Yeah.
if you do it in the winter?
There's a thing called silver leaf, which is ultimately fatal, and the spores get in through the fresh cuts. And plums, cherries, nectarines, peaches, that end of the rose family, they're all very susceptible. So there's a story that you only prune when there is no R in the month. So that's July, July, August. Well, June, July, August.
When you're not out shooting deer, you can prune your cherry trees.
So
Okay.
those are really the only safe times, and you want to prune immediately after you've taken the fruit. So if you've got a July cherry, you prune immediately after you've taken the cherries off. If you have an August cherry, you prune
And that's
immediately
presumably
after.
so you get more fruit.
Then you maximise fruit.
Yeah, okay.
And then all the other arguments are just the same: crossovers, damaged branches, and so on.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chris.
Okay.
Have a nice week. Bye.